This position is going to blow your mind because even though it says it's a draw, the reason it's a draw is absolutely incredible. This was from an actual game that I played earlier today, a 10-minute rabbit game. I was black, trying to hold on and not lose because my opponent had the knight, but I also thought maybe I have chances to win because I have this A pawn. Stockfish says it's a draw. Let me just go ahead and tell you, the game did not end in a draw. And this is one of the most incredible endgames I've seen in a while. So I'm going to back up just a little bit because I want to show you guys how we ended up in this position. So back to, let's just say right around here, I ended up losing a pawn, traded this off. So I have this endgame where I'm just down a pawn. Okay, we've got 2 against 2, 3 against 3 on the queen side, and then white has this extra pawn. Now this is very bad news for me. Okay, this is a passed pawn. That means there are no pawns that can stop it on the way to becoming a queen, which means one of these pieces of mine has to constantly guard this guy, which is a very bad thing at the end of the game. Usually that's going to be enough for the opponent to win. So I said to myself, okay, what do I at least have positive about the position for me? Is there anything good for me? And what I identified was these 3 pawns. And I said to myself, okay, Nelson, at least maybe you can make a beeline with your king, putting some pressure on these guys. It might be difficult for your opponent to defend those because his king's on the other side of the board. Kings are very good at actually hunting down pawns. And I thought, all right, maybe my bishop, is going to be good enough at controlling both sides of the board, and I could somehow hold on to this position. Okay, so I kicked the knight away first, and then I decided to go with my king. Now, there's some crazy Stockfish lines here that I'm not going to get into because I want to get to the end game, but I do want to show you how we ended up here. So my opponent attacks my bishop, I save it, he pushes the pawn, and I go for the plan, right? I'm going to hunt these weak pawns down to see if I can get some counterplay. If I'm able to capture all of these guys, then all of a sudden I'll be in a good position, right? He invades. This is very dangerous, right? Rook's on the 7th rank, you have to be really careful of. If I try to go here now, he's going to capture here with the check, also defending his pawn. Not good news. Rook to e7. I noticed that I could do this to defend my pawns. Now I have to be willing to go into the rook trade if that's what he decides to do. He doesn't immediately. He goes for this fancy move. Of course, if I take it, now Stockfish actually wanted me to take it. I thought, no, then I'm giving up this, and this looks weak, and this looks weak, and my king looks like it might get checkmated or something over here. So I didn't do that, but that's what Stockfish actually wanted me to do. He makes the trade. There was a win after knight d4. Crazy line. I'm not going to get into it. Now he plays knight d4. I played here. I'm trying to keep his knight away from my bishop, because here's the situation. If this pawn is able to push forward with the help of the knight, I have to sacrifice with my bishop, because otherwise he just gets a queen next move, right? So allowing the move knight to f5, forcing my bishop away, then pushing, I thought this was going to be losing immediately. So that's why I played g6. Now Stockfish says, no, there are actually ways around that, which we'll talk more about in just a second. But initially I'm like, no, I better keep the knight out. He goes here, and I go here. And I actually missed this idea that when I play c5, it allows knight to b5, which allows knight to c7 to d5, or even knight takes a7 to c8, both of which attack my bishop, force me to move, and then white's going to push their pawn and force me to give up my bishop, which is not what I wanted. So at this point, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to play a6. I'm going to keep my pawns alive because I'm probably going to need these. He moves here. And I said, at this point, I'm committed. I gotta go for it, try to get some counterplay with my pawns, understanding that I'm going to be losing my bishop in the next couple of moves, right? That's exactly what happens. He goes knight to d5, attacks my bishop, I move it, and he pushes the pawn. And Stockfish doesn't like it. And Stockfish says, no, the way that you win this as white is actually by playing knight to b6, holding on to these pawns, and then using the king to help, and only later do you push this. But in the game, my opponent didn't see that, and they decided to push right away, which, I mean, from a logical human standpoint, you would want to do that, right? Yeah, you get the piece. This has got to be good, right? Except now I have the option to get another pawn, and this is actually a critical moment in the game. Which pawn do you think I should take? All right, if you had a chance to think about that. So there's something that you should know about knights, and if you know this, it will help you make this decision on which pawn to take, okay? Knights are very bad at stopping outside pass pawns. And it's because the knight needs space to jump around, and on the edge of the board, you can't jump over there. You can't jump off the board. So the knights are very limited in what they can do. So whenever you have the option against a knight, at the end of the game, you're trying to decide, okay, which pass pawn do I want? a lot of times you want to get the outside pass pawn, and that's exactly the case in this position. If you take this pawn, it's going to be very easy for white. Okay, as an example, they could just take your pawn. You could try to push it. The knight's going to come back, and then boom, they just stop you. That simple. You can attack it. They defend it. You're just in trouble. They're going to push this, get a queen, and you lose. It's like that easy. Okay. So I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to take this pawn instead. All right, great. My opponent plays king, or they're trying to bring their king to stop these guys because they see now that, hey, this is how I'm going to get counterplay with this a pawn. So I go king b3. I want to make sure that I'm boxing out their king so that it can't get over here. And then my plan is simple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need 5 moves. I'm going to push my pawn. I'm going to get a queen. Or maybe I have to, allow white to sacrifice their knight for it. But still, if I'm able to achieve that, for example, if these get traded, I'm happy. I've got 2 against 1 and then 2 against 2. I'm going to probably win that endgame. Okay? So right here, my opponent has a couple of options. Option number 1, they could take the pawn if they want and try to then get their own pass pawn going. The problem with that is my pawn's pushing pretty quickly. Now, Stockfish actually says this is the wrong move, and white's going to be able to win because once the king gets on d3, I guess the knight is coming back just in time. Let's take a look. Knight to e2. And if you push, there's a fork, okay? He's just sneaking in by in time, and if I try to avoid that, he goes to here. He's going to be able to sack, and he's going to get the pass pawn. Okay, so I would have to be very, very careful going back all the way to this position if white would have taken this pawn. And I actually needed to play king to c2 to not allow the king to come closer. And now when the knight tries to come back and I push, we have a different story. Let's actually see why this doesn't work. Because now the knight just has no way to get in. See that? The knight can't get there. And it's going to be a draw for some reason. Knight takes c5, a3, knight d3. I can't push because of fork, but I can go here. Now he goes back. I take this is a total mess, but it's supposedly a draw. Okay, we're not going to get into this. I want to get back to the game. So I just wanted to point out that in this position, this was a very tricky line that my opponent could have gone for, but they did not. Instead, they played king d3, trying to get their king as close as they can over here, also defends their pawn. I said, okay, I could push now, but do I really want to allow the knight to take here? Because then I have the 2 against 1 that I have to worry about. I don't know how I feel about that. So I play g5, which Stockfish agrees with me, taking the time to just save my pawns. Now we have 2 against 2. I don't have to worry about any passed pawns. The knight is still going to have to come back and stop this guy. Because, I just need these 5 moves and I have a queen, right? Okay, so they go here. I push. They go here. I push. Now, at this point, I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. I think I'm winning this game now. Because the only way that I see for this knight to stop this pawn is by sacrificing it right now, because otherwise I'm just going to be gone. And I said to myself, okay, if they take it and I take, this must be a win, because now I'm going to play b5, takes. We have a passed pawn, for example, something like this. The king has to stay here, and something like this. Eventually, at the right moment, I'll abandon the pawn, come over here, gobble up the pawns, and I'm going to win. Okay, we have 2 against 0. This is a win. That makes sense, right? So with this, going back here, I said to myself, I think I've won, right? Now, my opponent tried a different line. Instead of taking, they tried to run with their king. They're hoping that they can get their king over here. But a3, a2 stops them, and they resigned. Cool, so I got the win. But what's incredible about this game, guys, don't leave, because you're going to want to see this. Stockfish showed me an amazing concept of how it's actually a draw. And when I show you what I'm about to show you, you're going to actually think for a minute, wait a second, no, I'm losing. It's going to be a win for white. But no, it's not. It's incredible. So watch this. Knight to d5. Why are you going knight to d5? Well, push. Probably because you want to jump your knight here and sack, right? Wrong, because this is still a loss. This is still going to be a win for me. Eventually, I'm going to be able to use my extra pawn to create a passed pawn. I'm going to win. The reason Stockfish wanted to go here was to go to e3. Wait, why knight e3? What does that even do? I just pushed my pawn. Knight to c2. Aha! Wait, that doesn't make sense. King b2. I'm still going to win the knight. What is Stockfish doing? What do you guys think? What is Stockfish doing? Wait for it. Wait for it. Knight to a1. blockading the pawn. The only way I'm going to be able to get a queen is if I take that knight. But wait a second, king c2 traps my king in the corner. You might say, wait a second, Nelson, you have some extra pawns, but this is blockaded. If I ever push this to try to create the pass pawn here, that doesn't help me because this guy's going to just become a queen. This guy is stuck. He can't get past the king. The king's just going to go back and forth. These pawns are all just stuck. Wait, am I going to be in Zugzwang where white's going to force me to give up my pawn and I'm going to lose? I could play g4, but then the king just goes king c1. I have to move. h5, the king just goes here. I have to move. I don't want to give up my pawns. I can play b6. King goes to c1. I'm going to lose this game. I'm going to lose this game, right? b5 and I lose. So why is it a draw? Look at this. This is incredible. You play h4. Now you play g3. You're going to get a queen if he doesn't take you. Now you play b5. Why? Because after the pawn takes, guess what? You're going to push your pawn up here and you're going to get a stalemate. Boom. 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 And even though they get the queen, it's a stalemate. Black can't move. Is that not... You know what else is amazing? Even if they don't get the queen and they take you here, still a stalemate. The only other thing they could do would be to go here, but then you force them to take you, and it's a stalemate. This endgame came out of an actual rapid game? Are you kidding me? This is insane. This is nuts. So, just to remind you, going back here, you don't take the pawn. You don't take the pawn. You loop your knight to here, to here, to here, to sacrifice it in the corner so that the king has to take you so you can trap it. Now black is essentially in Zugzwang. It looks like they're going to lose, but no, they can give up all their pawns and just in the nick of time get the stalemate. That's it. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. This is insane. This is insane. Anyway, I wanted to share it with you guys. I hope you appreciate that. Let me know what you think. This stuff doesn't happen very often, but man, that endgame just blew my mind. Thank you guys. As always, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.